Hey good people, and welcome back to the channel. First off, I want to wish everyone out there a happy new year, and with today marking the beginning of 2023, it is also the start of Grind Week on the channel. And if you're new here, then just know that whenever I do a Grind Week session, I plan on posting around 7 videos within 7 days. But for today's video, I want to post an unpopular opinion which comes from the popular AMC TV series The Walking Dead. And I'm sure this video will get some interesting feedback in the comment section. But before we get started, if you're new to the channel and you like the content, then feel free to subscribe so that you can get kept in the loop about my future content, and you can also help me grow as a content creator. So to everyone out there, feel free to sit back, buckle up, and prepare to agree or disagree with my opinion. The TV show The Walking Dead came out over 10 years ago, and although it recently ended, it is one of my favorite TV shows ever. During the first 5 seasons of The Walking Dead, Rick and company are not only fighting zombies, but they are also fighting enemies who wish to either kill them or take their resources. Now, while it was great to see how Rick and company were able to escape most sticky situations unscathed, Rick and company would never be the same once they were formally introduced to Negan and the Saviors. Now, for some odd reason, The Walking Dead paints Rick and company as heroes of the show, while painting Negan and Saviors as villains. But it is my opinion that Negan and his group are the real heroes during the Savior storyline, and that Negan was actually justified in killing Glenn and Abraham. Now, to understand this, we have to unpack a series of events that happened after Rick and company settled into Alexandria. You see, folks, Rick and company had been working on borrowed time for a while, and they would eventually have to answer for their long history of transgressions. Prior to being invited to Alexandria, Rick's group physically assaulted Aaron and held him hostage until he proved to them that he wasn't a threat. And once Rick and company were inside Alexandria, they came into constant conflict with a number of Alexandrians. And this was primarily because Rick and company were used to doing things on their own, and they didn't feel the need to consider winning over the hearts and minds of Alexandrians. Because in Rick's mind, it was either his way or the highway. Now, several months after Rick and company got settled into Alexandria, Alexandria faced a food crisis, and Rick made a deal with the devil named Jesus. In that deal, Rick agrees to take out the Saviors, a group which he knows nothing about, in exchange for food from Hilltop. And this deal is stupid for a number of reasons. 1. Rick never attempted to gather any intelligence on the Saviors, such as their numbers, their firepower, or all of their outposts in the area. 2. Rick never attempted to negotiate a counteroffer for the food with Jesus. And 3. Had Rick simply entered into a bartering arrangement with Hilltop, then Jesus would have eventually viewed Alexandria as allies, he would have eventually told Rick about the kingdom, and Ezekiel would have gladly provided food without any issues. But Rick and company gladly accepted the terms of Jesus' deal, while ignoring Morgan's advice not to attack the Saviors, because up until this point of the show, Rick and company were cold-hearted killers. Sometimes they killed people in protection of one another, and other times, they gladly killed people who posed a threat to their way of life. People in Rick's group have killed kids, cops, people in their sleep, yet we as the audience are conditioned to root for Rick and his group because we followed their story from start to finish. If you ask me, Rick and his group really don't have a code unless it's to one another. But I've always wondered how the Walking Dead audience would have received Negan if we had seen his backstory early on. Who knows how that would have changed things. But what I do know for a fact is that the Saviors are not a bad group. Sure, they do have a few bad apples, but these bad apples operated outside of Negan's authority, and Negan had no pity tossing those bad apples in the garbage. But I would consider the Saviors good people for 2 major reasons. 1, in the Walking Dead universe, there has been a collapse in local, state, and federal government in America. On the show, we see how desperate the world of the living can be when they require resources. But under Negan's leadership, the greatest resource was people. Negan had the foresight to understand that the world as we knew it needed leadership, organization, and security. And the world that Negan wanted to live in needed people who were willing to carry their own weight, as well as people who were willing to work together. And these are things that Negan tried to accomplish as the leader of the Saviors. And Negan was actually doing a pretty good job until Rick came along. But the second reason as to why I feel the Saviors were good is because they were the only opposing group that Rick and company encountered that actually took mercy on Rick and company while offering Rick's group a very reasonable deal. Think about it. In past seasons, the governor and his followers were ready to kill Rick and show no mercy to their group, all because the governor was crazy. Joe and the Claimers were ready to kill Rick and assault Michonne and Carl, all because Rick killed one of their members. And the people from Terminus were just hungry, and they wanted to make Rick's group into the main course for dinner. All the Saviors wanted to do was offer a home for the homeless, a semblance of organization in a lawless society, and they wanted to broker a deal with other communities that allowed the Saviors to receive valuable resources in exchange for peace and protection. But going back to the transgressions of Rick and company, Rick and his people murdered dozens of Saviors in different locations prior to even meeting Negan. They even kidnapped the baby from the Saviors' compound, and Negan is a leader of the baddest group in Northern Virginia. His people are looking to him for leadership, and after a group of rebels have declared war on the Saviors, Negan's people wanted justice. And after everything that Rick's group had done to Negan's people, Negan just wanted to kill one person from Rick's group, which was more than generous if you ask me. But even after Negan kills Abraham and Glenn, Carl mows down several more Saviors, and Rosita tries to kill Negan. At that point, Negan had every right to exact revenge, but he shows restraint towards a resistant group. Now one could argue that if Rick and company had never met the Saviors, then the Whisperers would have never been a threat to any of the communities. In my opinion, with the right amount of trust being built and the right negotiations taking place, Negan's system of government could have actually been advantageous for everybody involved. I think it's important to mention that Negan's system was indeed flawed. In my opinion, it was because the communities that were within the system never really bothered to try to work together to negotiate better terms with Negan. And I think that if Deanna had still been alive to meet Negan, then she could have brokered a deal that would have not only spared everybody in Alexandria, but it would have been a deal that would have made Alexandria more of a partner than a subject. But that's just my opinion, and I would definitely like to know what you all think about this. Do you feel that Negan and the Saviors were good, or do you still view them as villains of the show? Feel free to leave all comments below in the comment section, and I'll be sure to reply to everybody. Until next time, stay tuned and stay safe. Peace.